So that's why the support system, the social support system, is so important to complement and to have that both best of both worlds. And we need to work together for that, collaborate and find each other and ask the questions.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another mini interview of Powerful Women in Diabetes. I'm Rachel with Not Just a Patch, and today I'm thrilled, so thrilled, to be joined by Nurianne Arias. She's a PhD candidate in public administration, a lecturer at the University of Aruba, a dedicated diabetes researcher, and a proud young leader in diabetes with the International Diabetes Federation. Her journey spans from volunteering at an age of 12 to representing Aruba at the Miss World pageant to advocating for children's health and now conducting research that explores how communities and support systems can improve the lives of people with hidden disabilities like diabetes, ADHD, and endometriosis. So, thank you so much for being here today, Nurianne. Let's start. I just want to hear a little bit about obviously, you have quite a background and resume. It's amazing. But even just hearing about sort of your personal connection to diabetes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm very excited to be here, and speak to you digitally online. It's a pleasure to speak about my advocacy and the work that I do and the reason why I do it, and hopefully motivate others to do the same in their own field, of course. So, actually, everything started when I was diagnosed with diabetes type 1 myself. But that's the diabetes advocacy. But way before that, and you mentioned it, when I was 12, I joined an international charity and service club on the island called Key Club. Not sure if there are any in Australia, or Kiwani's club, but for high school students. And ever since, the rest is history. And way before that, I've always liked to help other people, and I've had this just affinity to help others. And it grew with the time. So I'm happy that now I get to do it specifically in the health field.
Yeah, that can be very powerful to have some lived experience in what you're advocating and working with. So that's amazing. So your work centers on, from what I understand, advocating for people with hidden disabilities. And you've spoken about the importance of community support systems, which is something very near and dear to my heart. And I do feel like, especially right now, I'm in the United States, we understand like community care is really important and it's almost sort of like a buzzword right now. But it sort of feels a little abstract, I think, because we're so removed from community at this point in a lot of places. So can you explain, sort of how community support integrates into the world of disability?
Well, I'll go straight to the point in this part because I come from an island. I live in Aruba. I grew up here. I was born here, and coming from a small island context, you realize that all you need is not what you should do and what medicine you should take, and that's it, and go home and live your life. You need interaction with others. You need to be able to feel included and feel part of everything else that is ongoing in your communities, be it in sport, at work, at home. And that is something that people sometimes forget, that treating a health condition is not just about the physical and biological aspect, but it's also about the emotional and spiritual and psychological part of it. And hence, that is what community care also means. It goes beyond the medical field and what doctors and medical experts can explain and treat, but also prevents that at a certain point you burn out because you're tired of having to take care on your own. Because at a certain point, many conditions you have to self manage, and you do not do that at the doctor's office. You do that when you're going to the gym, when you're at work, when you're walking home, when you're grocery shopping. And if others cannot support you in what you're doing and in your outcomes that you want to achieve, it gets very hard. And that's where community care is very important. That your family members understand, for example, your diet, your lifestyle, the reason why you do or do not. That work understands why you need to leave work 5 o'clock on the dot because you have a tight, eating schedule. And those are the minor details that people do not realize, especially when it's a hidden disability. Some people do not consider that they have a hidden disability. and maybe you don't have a disability at all times. For example, with a physical disability, but with a hidden disability, at times it peaks, at times it does not. And that makes it hard for others to follow. And it's more like a symbolic contract that you have with others. Like, can we build our relationship based on my needs and your needs, and make sure that we can, you know, interact and not have confrontations because of the needs that I need to be served. And that is what it is, actually, making sure that the relationships build and the environment can support you, and that you can participate while feeling included, and that others do not feel that you're taking their space either, so that relationship becomes stronger and everyone can benefit from it, because at the end of the day, anybody can have a disability at a certain point.
Oh, yeah. And I think you're definitely speaking to like, so especially I think in type 1 diabetes land, at least when I was growing up, it was very common that we heard, "Oh, you can do anything with diabetes," like, just this like, especially as a child, like, creates sort of a, that when you find out that, like, a lot of people with diabetes identify with being disabled, like, that is what it is, right? It feels weird because you were like, "No, I'm supposed to be able to do anything. I'm supposed to be able to eat anything and do all the sports I wanna do and all of these different things without anything getting in the way as long as I take care of myself." Um, so it's definitely a very important conversation to have because I think, people are really hesitant to ask for accommodations and things like that, and that's common in disability as well, as you don't feel disabled enough a lot of the time. Uh
I have the same feeling with neurodivergence, and that's the reason why I wanted to delve deep into it for my research as well. But
Mhm.
trying to, I want to do everything at once. I'm trying to figure it out. But with neurodivergence, we speak often about also the spectrum and the autism spectrum, etc. There are many terms and concepts. But with hidden disabilities, I almost want to say there's a spectrum too. Some people say, I don't have a disability, I just happen to not feel well all the time. And others would say, yes, I'm at the point that I cannot get out of bed. And I would want to motivate and also advocate for. Let's speak about there's a spectrum of it, and it can be anywhere between not feeling unwell at all to feeling completely unwell, not being able to be productive, whatever that means. And that's what I miss. Sometimes I miss, like, it can be both, It can be today I feel well and I'm working and doing everything, and tomorrow I don't even have appetite, or I don't have energy to do anything. And that part is also something I want to do with my research, to just to make people understand that it's this or that, but everything in between as well.
Totally. Yeah. I'm very pro diabetes as a spectrum because it really is, very much like that. I especially as we're starting to see, like, people again, it was the idea that type 1 was this, like, almost, like, superior, you often see it as it's just
Oh
like,
yeah.
whereas I have personally a lot of family with type 2, and so I'm starting to see some of those things we would consider type 2, resistance. And so that being said, there's like a spectrum of things that can happen to you as a person with diabetes. So I think that's why you hear a lot of people that are like, "Well, I don't know why this person feels this way. I'm fine, doing this," and they're not. But that's just because it's such a dynamic, um disability, and as you're saying, ADHD and autism, all of these things are spectral.
Exactly. And that's something, a similarity I saw between diabetes and neurodivergence. Like with diabetes, sometimes individuals with type 2 get roughly discriminated very harshly. Oh, I'm just lifestyle and diet and this, but it's not that simple. With type 1 diabetes, it's not simple either, because sometimes we do things that maybe are not recommended, and then we get away with it because we're dependent on insulin, and it's not okay. I mean, I understand that we could do maybe have a bit more flexibility, but
Mhm.
still, we will deal with consequences, like individuals with type 2 diabetes as well. So that stigma, I see it with neurodivergence as well. Like, but you don't even look autistic. But what do you mean? But you can do this, but you can talk
Mm.
you can be like in a loud crowd, or you can be in a large crowd. And that is the discourse that I want people to realize, guys, this is not black or white. There's so much gray area in between. It's not that simple. We just need to listen to each other and then just understand. And Just let us be. Just let us be, you know?
Totally. And it's definitely what I've been working on in my, like, social media space is the internalized part of it. Like, if we are unkind and discriminate against other disabilities or people outside of the US, and that sort of, or some of these bigger countries, like, um there's we're never going to see, this leads into really well, like, what does that idea of, like, collective liberation and this solidarity with other disabilities and other people with diabetes, what does that mean in the context of diabetes and disability advocacy, and how can we move towards a world where everybody, not just the few of us, has access to care and support and dignity? Um, so yeah, what does I guess, like, especially in where you are, I've read some of what you've done, and looks like, again, sort of that idea of collective liberation. How does that work, in your research and some of your advocacy work?
Well, I really my for my research, it's very relevant to think about again the small island context. I keep saying smile island context. Well, actually, we smile a lot on the island. Happy island. But anyway, small island context. Because even though we have high contact, we're high contact people. We interact a lot, and everybody knows each other, and we meet each other everywhere in the supermarket. It's a small island. We still live with a lot of shame and guilt, and we don't share what we actually go through. People know or might realize, but we're not at a point where we could say, I'm really struggling with this and I really want to have support. We just internalize everything and keep it inside. We don't share this with our peers or family, and we just keep going. And that is super counterproductive to what actually has to be done in order to live with diabetes, or appropriately treat your diabetes, your condition. And it's quite scary because when you realize how many people live with shame, that means that you don't want to accept to a certain extent what you need, what your needs are in order to self manage your condition. And it's not going to give positive results at the end of the day. You're going to see the opposite of what we want to have: less complications, you're having balanced lifestyle, better mental health, well being. And for me, the liberation is really about letting go little by little of the shame of not accepting what's living with diabetes. I know that is a hard thing to deal with. There's stages of grief, and sometimes you go back and you move forward and then you go back. But as long as people have the tools and have the support, peers, family, to hold on and say, okay, okay, I'll stop eating everything I see and go back to my routine because this is not serving me. Or let me just go back to my routine and let me take my medicine back because this is not serving me. That is the liberation that I want to work towards with my research. I want to explain why people in our context are challenged with the condition, having a diagnosis of diabetes type 2 or diabetes type 1. How can we make sure that the adolescents and emerging adults face less frustration, more acceptance towards their condition? And how can we make sure that everybody in their developmental phase in their lifespan can deal with the challenges of the condition as they grow older and older? All phases of life have challenges. When you're a teenager, you're trying to figure out, okay, what is this? What is going on? What am I going to be? What am I going to study? And then you're figuring out the tab because you have studies that, and then you want to buy a house and a car, and then it's not going, and you want to party, but it's not working. And then you're in full adult and you want to have children and a family. So there's always something. We're just dealing with it in each phase in this context where we don't talk about our personal challenges easily. We keep it because everybody would know what is happening. That for me is the liberation within this context. And I hope that little by little with research and explaining, people would realize, oh, but actually I'm not alone. There's many other people going through this. Or this could also be an option. This is also a way to deal with the acceptance of my condition. Now I would be happy to see that happen at a certain point.
Yeah, totally. You're I It's definitely something I feel like we skip over quite a bit is the grieving portion, and that's I agree is sort of where people get stuck. It's like and I see this especially as somebody who was diagnosed so young. I was 5.
Mhm. Wow.
I kind of like I very much I remember kinda crying about it and then for, like, a day and sort of, like, just moving forward, but that's partially because, like, as a child, you haven't yet I didn't have, like, a big, massive future that I could see was affected by diabetes so deeply, whereas when I see my maybe older adult patients especially, the grieving looks so much different, and is a lot longer because you often have this, sense of self that you've developed and then also, a future that you envisioned that is now going to look very different. So, um, and yes, having the community care and the ability to talk about what you're going through is really valuable to help you get through that grieving. Um
Absolutely. And they grieve too. And that's the part of it that I consider an important part in my own dissertation. They grieve too. So you're grieving yourself. And then if you see that your family is suffering or going through a hard time because of your condition or your diagnosis, you grieve with them about you, for you, because of what happened to you. And it's hard to have to deal with this combination of things, especially when you're aware of what is happening. I cannot imagine how it is like for a child that is 5 year old, 6 year old. You know, you're young and you don't understand fully what is happening,
Mhm,
and you get used to it, but there's not really a chance to process it as an adult would do it. I was diagnosed when I was 20, and it was a grief. I experienced all the phases of grief with everyone. And my grandmother, my mother, my partner, everybody. I felt every part of it. And I think that is something that sometimes we overlook as well, as well as a parent. What about the parents who live diabetes because of their children? They live it fully because of the child who has diabetes. And we tend to forget that. It has a lot of impact on the person's life.
totally, yeah. Caregiver strain is really a whole 'nother, topic for sure. Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, I think that's a very I'm excited to see sort of what you come up with in your dissertation and everything like that. I think it's a really important thing to talk about and examine and learn more about. So, um, I know you've kind of touched on this, but quite a bit. But looking ahead, what kind of impact, or what else kind of an impact do you hope that your research and your advocacy and your teaching will make?
Well, it's honestly, I like to measure some way through research what we do as projects as part of the local foundation for diabetes, through support groups and organized education programs, and that's something I definitely want to see embedded more and more in our medical system on the island and islands. I would want to also collaborate with other islands in the Caribbean, and in our North American Caribbean region, through my advocacy, really each person that listens to what I have to say and that can see that this could help them, that for me is more than enough. And everything will catch up after that. But to me, it's also really adding value to the medical system through social aspects, paying attention to these other aspects like financial strain, social economic status, social issues at home, and that we can tackle not just diabetes but other disabilities as well, for what they are, because oftentimes they are fueled in a not positive way, so negatively by social problems and maybe the lack of mental health support and everything else going on around the person, that it makes me feel very concerned because it's difficult to treat a person. And I've heard it often from medical experts. I'm treating the person, but they go home and there's nobody to help them. Or they go home and they don't know how to carb count or how to, you know, figure out what they should eat and what the portions are. And so embedding this advocacy in the education system and everything that we do, and rethinking how we invest our time in educating and supporting the person, continuously throughout the whole lifespan, to me is very important. And that's why we like to start with the children. We do diabetes kits, but then we have a lot to go because we have doing it for a few years. But starting with diabetes kits and explaining, actually you could choose to not drink, the soft drinks, and drink water instead. Just an example. And little by little, just inculcating these values of how we could take care of each other, and be more conscious and aware of our choices, and understand how just these simple things can change our lives. And maybe it just means starting with empathy. I just want people to have empathy with each other, even medical experts. And then so sometimes that also turns out to not go well. And people say, well, I don't feel that I'm being listened to. I don't feel that I am seen or heard. And I understand it, because with so many challenges in the medical system, anywhere, everywhere around the world, basically, almost everywhere, has challenges, a lot of pressure on mental health. And professionals are running behind time trying to help everyone, and sometimes that support cannot be provided at that point. So they're trying to treat the patient, but there's just so many things going on that they want to treat everyone. So that's why the support system, the social support system, is so important to complement, and to, have that both best of both worlds. And we need to work together for that, collaborate and find each other and ask the questions, adapt if we need to, be less stubborn, be open for change, be open to do something different that we've never done before. And that's what it is.
Heck yes. All right. Well, I'm ready to to support you in that and support everybody in that. Fantastic. Well, you are legit so amazing, and so I'm sure people will want to follow you and kind of keep up with all the amazing work you're doing. So what are some ways that people can follow you and support you?
Well, actually, I'm trying to be everywhere.
Good.
I try to be reachable everywhere. Usually on my Instagram page, I share my personal journey as a person. I like people to see exactly what I do and how I do it, and who I do it for. I don't have a separate page for diabetes on Instagram. It's really everything embedded in my page. It's T1D underscore Nurianne, so my name. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. If you search for my first name, Nurianne, you'll find me. Also on Facebook. But I have a personal advocacy page on Facebook though. It's quite easier. And I also have my personal page on Facebook. So basically, if you search for me, I think you might be able to find my Instagram first, probably because I'm more active on Instagram than I am on Facebook. But I also do a lot of things with the local foundation for diabetes. Sometimes you see me pop around Fundación Diabetes Aruba, and also Young Leader in Diabetes. So please do to find me on Instagram, and through my link tree in my bio profile, you will see that I have the links to my LinkedIn, to Facebook, and also to the patient advocacy group that we started with on the island. So there's a lot going on, but please find me on Instagram, because I'm mostly active on Instagram, and we can speak and connect and do projects together.
Amazing. I love it. All right. Well, it was again so cool hearing from you. And again, if you want to learn more about Nurianne and all of her good stuff she's doing, yeah, start with Instagram and go from there. But yeah, we'll talk to you later, Nurianne. You have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very, very grateful for this opportunity. I hope that it inspires anyone. Any little piece would be awesome, and keep up the good work.